We're a weekend of SWAC play, and Alcorn State and Alabama State are starting to show the heartbeat offensively that we've been looking for. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey's over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. And if you put down a $5 bet, you get $200 back in bonus bets. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com to get started. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at the big test that South Carolina State is facing this week against Tennessee Tech. Prior to that, North Carolina Central is looking for redemption from a previous CAA loss this season when they face off against Campbell yet again. But I want to kick it off with our last piece of reflection from the previous weekend of action. I know these Thursday episodes, it feels like we've gone 3 games to watch. So it'll be one segment for each game, or maybe 2 segments for an individual game, and then a medley to end the show. But I wanted to look at something before we moved on from last week and move into this week. Alabama State and Alcorn showed a heartbeat offensively that I think we've been desiring and looking for from them for different reasons for each one, right? When you look at Alabama State is supposed to be the best team in Black college football coming into the year, depending on who you ask. They're definitely in that top 3 to 4 range. And then you're looking at Alcorn, who's supposed to be the best in the West. And I don't think they had these big grandiose expectations the same way that the Hornets did. But when you start off the way that they started off, we're looking at that offense with a whole lot of scrutiny, and me in particular, because I'm out here killing Alcorn, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. When it comes to out of conference games, we always take things with a grain of salt. I understand how that works. I understand why it works the way that it does. When it's negative, it's like, okay, things will get better. I gave this speech 2 days ago, I believe, maybe 3. I think it was Tuesday's episode, so 2 days ago, where we talked about Morgan State. And I said, hey, yes, things will likely get better when you get into conference play, but A, you're not going to go from bad to great. And then B, I want to see a heartbeat. That's what I talked about. I've seen a heartbeat for Alabama State and Alcorn. And it's kind of appropriate that I use this Morgan State talking point with Alabama State, because to me, they're like extremely similar. They're almost twins. They're definitely relatives. And you're just looking at SWAC versus MEAC. To me, the SWAC version of Morgan State is Alabama State. The MEAC version of Alabama State is Morgan State in the way that we talk about them. The way that we talk about them is this championship level defense that has lackluster offense. Well, one lackluster offense has shown me something. Who knows? Maybe when MEAC play comes around, Morgan State will drop 30 on somebody's head, and then I'll have this conversation about them. But as of right now, they have not shown me the heartbeat, and Alabama State has shown me that heartbeat. And that's what we talk about. Things will get better, but where are you starting from? Because if you're starting from the bottom, I highly doubt you're going to reach the top this season. If we're just talking about you look absolutely pitiful, you're not going to go from pitiful to really good. You're not going to go from pitiful to great. You may go from a pitiful offense to a borderline average offense when you get into conference play. But I don't think a jump more than that is, I don't think that's reasonable to expect. I think it's overly hopeful, to be honest. So when I'm looking at Alabama State, let's move on from Morgan if I take this whole time talking about the Bears. If you want to hear more things along that line, if you want to hear more things about that topic, then you can go back a couple of episodes. That was segment 3 on Tuesday. Yeah, it's the one that says bounce back with Jackson State on the thumbnail. But When it comes to Alabama State, we wanted to see them have some sort of offensive spurt, some sort of offensive heartbeat, because they were expected to be the best out, man. That's what I thought. And a lot of that had to do with Andrew Body. Once you get injured, you move, you change, you shift. And now it's about how do you shift? I think that if they can do what they did against Bethune-Cookman to a multitude of other teams, oh, now we're having a different conversation, because the recipe that they had against the Wildcats, to me, is a recipe for success against a lot of other teams. It's just about how you execute. Recipes, like, guys, you can have the blueprint. I could give you the blueprint right now on how to do your biggest goal, but you have to execute it. And execution is not as simple as reading and doing. It's not. Sometimes you have recipes where you say, oh, add 1/4 garlic powder. Okay, I can do that. But dang, you don't know the difference between a tablespoon and a teaspoon. You are there getting them mixed up. I can only give you so much. This is about, that was a poor example, I think. But you get what I'm saying. They have to go out and execute the game plan that they executed against Bethune-Cookman another game, excuse me, specifically against FAMU this upcoming week. But what they did is they used the running game extremely well. Matter of fact, I would actually go as far to say that they used the running game masterfully. Because if we're talking about them being on a third, fourth string quarterback, you're gonna have to lean on the run, and they do like their running backs. They got a freshman out there, Holtzclaw. Oh, boy's good. Hey, the boy is good. They got Kinsey too. It's a good duo. Now, here's the thing. Against Bethune-Cookman, every single drive was 3 minutes or more, except for the drives that they got at the end of the half. They got the ball at the end of the first half with less than a minute left, and they drove down 50 some odd yards to get in the field goal range. That's not something you expect. That's a good offensive performance. That's a really good drive. Okay, so if they can continue to do things like that, they take down 3 minutes of the clock. That's time of possession that the other team can't get. That's helping their defense, because the more the defense is on the field, the more likely they are to give up a play. Now, I'm going to leave it there, because when it comes to Alabama State, that is my game of the week, Alabama State versus FAMU. So I don't want to regurgitate too many things, but I'll just say this. Alabama State showed me a heartbeat with how they used the run game going into SWAC play, to where this makes me believe that they may be able to still achieve the things I thought they could achieve going into the season. It's just about execution. If they execute, they're there. Then when you look at Alcorn, I've been killing them. I've been talking about how you haven't been able to get any sort of offense going, and then you go and you play Mississippi Valley State, and you drop 40 something on their head. Okay, cool. Now, I don't care if you think Valley is a good defense. I don't care if you think Valley, that's just Valley. No, this is a SWAC team. Even if they're a lower level SWAC team, to be able to go in there and drop 40 on their head, to me, is impressive. To me, is a heartbeat. I'm not here sitting there telling you that Alabama State all of a sudden became an elite offense. I'm not here telling you that Alcorn became an elite offense. I'm here telling you that they have a heartbeat. They have a reason for me to think that they could improve, for me to think that they could be an average to above average team offensively. They've shown me that. Next week, or this upcoming week in 2 days, Alcorn has Arkansas Pine Bluff. This is also not one of the top tier teams in the conference. I like this for them, because afterwards, let's see, I think I wrote it down with who they have. Man, they have to go Grambling. Where is it at? They have to go Grambling, Southern, Bama State. It's going to get tougher. It is going to get tougher for Alcorn. So when it does get tougher, you need to have your offense in order. I would never disrespect UAPB and play them like I did Edward Waters, right? Edward Waters, they came and dropped a good amount of points on Alcorn did on Edward Waters' head, but that ain't matter to me. That was D2, whatever. I wouldn't do UAPB like that. I wouldn't do that. So I wouldn't say that they need to go run up the score. Like, I just think they can do that. Instead, I would say that this is where you get comfortable, because I think your defense can carry you for some of these games. You can use these games as moments to get your offense together. You still got to do something, obviously, but you're probably not relying on your offense as much as you normally would when you're facing Valley and UAPB. That's the way that I'm looking at it. And I think UAPB is going to be a team that gives a lot of people a tough challenge, including Alcorn. But I just don't think you're going to need your offense to throw 30 points on the board for that. But if they can, kudos to you. Another little offensive spurt. Let's just show some love to Delaware State. They dropped over 500 yards, 40 points against Campbell. They didn't win the game, but they dropped 41 points, and that's very impressive. So I want to we're going to be looking at them. We're going to be looking at them a whole lot differently moving forward. So speaking of moving forward and speaking of Campbell, let's take that opportunity to transition into North Carolina Central versus Campbell. We're done reflecting on the past week. We're now looking towards the future in 2 days. And North Carolina Central versus Campbell was a borderline game of the week, and it's definitely one that you need to watch as the Eagles are looking for redemption redemption against CAA teams. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, here's the thing when it comes to FanDuel. The WNBA playoffs are going on. The Liberty got the Aces pushed. All right, Friday is game 3. I'm rooting for my Aces. I'm hoping they get it together. Yes, I'm a fan of the Aces. I'm a fan of the Wings. I'm a kind of a fan of the Liberty because they got my girl Sabrina on there. I'm not a huge W guy, but I got some people that I'll be rooting for. So while you're rooting, why don't you just go ahead and make some money? Because if you like me, you rooting for everybody, you can put some money on everybody. And that's the thing. Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins go against the New England Patriots this week. You put some money down on the under, right? I don't think he's going to hit whatever they set him at. So it's things like that, guys. Go to FanDuel.com, and now when you put down your first $5 bet, you get $200 back in bonus bets, and that's what we like to see. So all you have to do is go to FanDuel.com, do it on the MLB, NHL, NFL, WNBA, or NBA. Just go to FanDuel.com and make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, check out our conference shows. Locked On SEC, Locked On ACC, Locked On Big 12, Locked On Big 10. Do we still have a Locked On Pac-12? You know, it's not really a Pac-12. I don't know. It's a good question. Good question. I don't know that one. But technically, I'm a conference show. So go check out my brothers and sisters on their platforms, please. Now, we looked at the offensive heartbeats. We looked at the previous week. Now let's move forward to the future. Let's look towards the future in Saturday. And one of the games that I'm looking forward to is North Carolina Central versus Campbell. To me, this is a chance for the Eagles to have a tad bit of redemption. And don't get it twisted. I think that the Eagles are great. I think that there's an argument that no one has looked better than them in 2024. I think there's a true, strong argument to be made there, in my personal opinion. And I think I would probably argue. I would probably agree. I don't think anybody has looked better than them. FAMU is right there. FAMU is probably a 1A, 1B, but I think I would put FAMU at 1B or 2 just because they had two FBS opponents that, you know, things happen. But and it's been a while, so it's more recent for me when it comes to North Carolina Central. But anyway, so I'm not saying redemption in the sense that they need to prove that they're good or need to redeem themselves and how their public opinion is. I'm not saying that at all. When I say redemption, to me, I'm specifically talking about going against a CAA team. Because the last time they went against a CAA team was Elon. And Elon was probably their worst game of the season. When you look at North Carolina Central, I had to do that disclaimer. I had to give that clarification because they looked great this year. Against Alabama State, I think they looked really good. I think that the Andrew Body situation really sullied a lot of how they performed. I don't know if they win that game if Andrew Body plays because it changes so much. It changes so much. I don't know if they ever adjust. I would like to think that they do. It's a lot of things that go into play there. And I'm actually upset that I wasn't able to watch that. If Andrew Body plays that whole game, I think that it just looks different. It's definitely a significantly closer game. Alabama State may get them. We may have it. I may not be talking about I may not be talking about Central the way that I am. But what happened. And I still think they showed good things. They just couldn't stop Andrew Body's scrambling ability. But outside of that, I thought they looked really good in almost every other facet of the game. So I'm not going to knock them for that. I think that'd be unfair. But against Norfolk State, they looked really good. I talked about this yesterday. They looked really good against Norfolk State. The offense was humming. Walker Harris looks prepared to ascend. Jamari Taylor looks like Jamari Taylor. They have a running mate for Taylor now. So now you have two running backs that you have to think about. You're looking at the defense, and their run game has always been stiff. I still have a little bit of wonder about their quarterback, right? Contained. That's a different conversation. But secondary looks good. I think that we know the coaching is good. I think they've looked amazing this year. You look, even the North Carolina game, they had a 28-point fourth quarter scored against them. The Tar Heels put up 28 points in the fourth quarter and won by 35. This was a close game until the last 15 minutes. And if we're talking about an FCS opponent, we're talking about a MEAC opponent going against a Power 4 school. That is everything. That's everything. So I got to give them a lot of kudos. But the one blemish on that record, the one blemish on that schedule, the one thing that you're probably sitting there like, I wish I could get that back, is the Elon game, because of how they jumped on you and how it was so difficult to come back. And right when you started to come back, now they get another swing of momentum, and now they put you away. I think that is probably the one thing that you're looking like, we're not happy with how that turned out. You're probably happy with how the UNC game turned out. You're happy with your two victories, especially that Norfolk State game. You're definitely happy with that. So you're loving what you're doing this year. But I would assume, from the conversation I had with Trey Oliver, from the conversations I've seen Trey Oliver have, I would assume that left a bad taste in their mouth and they want to get it back. I would assume that. And now you insert Campbell, who is another CAA team, another team within that conference. You can't go get your lick back on Elon. It ain't happening unless you lose the MEAC and then you somehow find them in a playoff game. You're not going to get your lick back on Elon this year. It's just not happening. And I know you don't want to lose the MEAC. So let's just assume that you don't get your lick back. This is the next best thing. I can't get you, but I can get them. Now, Campbell, they have a better record than Elon. Elon hasn't won a game outside of that central matchup. Campbell has two victories, including one over a top 25 FCS team. This is not going to be easy. I expect that their secondary will be tested because that's what Campbell does. Campbell throws the football. At the end of the day, they're not going to be a run-heavy team, or even if they're run-heavy, they're not going to be overly effective. I think that your run defense has shown themselves to be really good. I think they have over 4 yards per carry once, maybe twice this year, but I think it's only once. Or maybe that number's 5. Maybe they've only been over 5 yards per carry once, 4 twice. I don't know, but it's not often. It's half at best. I don't love how they run the football. That's just my personal opinion. It's not as productive to me. But when I'm looking at North Carolina Central, that's what they stopped. And I know they're going to look to run the football against them. I'm going to be fascinated. I will be seated, waiting and anticipating this game. We'll probably cover this on a Tuesday. That's kind of my expectation, is that Tuesday we will be covering this game in some capacity. Whatever that capacity is, in some capacity, we'll be covering North Carolina Central versus Campbell, because this is a get your lick back type of game. And North Carolina Central's offense is starting to hum now. When I look at last week, Delaware State put up 41 points on them. Campbell put up 44. Both of these are aberrations. Campbell does not score that much, and they do not allow that many points. That's the truth. Like, if I'm North Carolina Central, I'm looking towards what did Delaware State do offensively to score that many points. But you have to understand, as a fan going into it, that is not a normal Campbell game in 2024. Campbell allowed 41 points. Campbell allowed more than 25 points once this year, and it's to Liberty, outside of the Delaware State game, to Liberty, an FBS opponent, a Conference USA reigning defending champion, topping the conference at this current moment. That's the only team that's really put up points on Campbell outside of Delaware State. So I'm going to look to see, what did Delaware State do? They ran the ball really well, right? They almost had 200 yards by their running back. Adams had about 250 through the air. I'm looking at those things. That's what I'm fascinated about, because you're doing something that most people don't. And what happened? And then I'm just going to trust my defense to keep them from scoring 44 points. You may not score 41 of your own. You may score 27. You may score 30. That's already more than the majority of people that you'll be seeing against Campbell on a yearly basis. Okay. Now I want to push forward real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. But yeah, I didn't miss anything. I want to push forward, and I want to look at South Carolina State, because South Carolina State is going to be going against Tennessee Tech, and that's going to be a big challenge for them. And it's one I want to break down as we continue and wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. South Carolina State has been looking good this year. South Carolina State is a couple of plays away from being undefeated in FCS play. Right now, they're 2-2. They've gone loss, win, loss, win. Let's see if they can break the cycle, because you go L-dub, L-dub. You know what comes next if we keep in the pattern. It comes L. But I think this is a really big test and a really big challenge for the Bulldogs when I'm looking at Tennessee Tech, because, hey, Tech lost their first 2 games of the year when they went against the University of Georgia and they went against Middle Tennessee. I don't think anybody is sweating Tech for losing to Georgia. And then Middle Tennessee is an FBS team in their own right. So that was kind of an expected outcome as well. Now, you look at the last 2 weeks, they're going into conference play, and they've been undefeated over the last 2 weeks in FCS play. So you have 2 schools who, when they're facing teams on their subdivision, have looked really good. When you're looking at the victory of Tennessee Tech over Tennessee State, I thought that they showed some things defensively. Then also against Gardner-Webb, they showed things defensively, but they also exploded offensively. They put up 52. They put up 21 points unanswered to start the game. You get 21-0. Cool. That's skunk past the sticks, if we're going to be honest about it. That's past the sticks. But they say, you know what? We're not done. Gardner-Webb said, we're not laying down. We're going to give you a touchdown. And they should have laid down, because they didn't take too kindly to Gardner-Webb's decision to try to show some sort of offensive. That's when you don't want to show that offensive heartbeat. They said, oh, that's what you want to do? All right, we're going to drop 31 on your head unanswered again. So you had a 21-point streak. Then you had a 31-point streak. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. They didn't put up their they didn't get to double digits, or Gardner-Webb didn't get into double digits until the 4th quarter, right? Like, they scored 2 touchdowns in the 4th. In general, they have been dominant on one side of the ball all year. Tennessee State did not get much going offensively. A big part of their offense was the pick 6 that they had. Then Tennessee Tech closed out the game with a pick 6 of their own. I thought that was some phenomenal concentration. I thought that just in general, you're looking at a defense that knows how to get around the football. You're looking at a defense that knows how to be secure. Then you go against Gardner-Webb and you see an offense that knows how to explode, and they ran the ball like they hadn't all season. They had over 300 yards on the ground against Gardner-Webb. Cool. Let this be a battle of the groundwork. Let this be a battle of the trenches, because I think South Carolina State and Shennis Berry would like that. I'm not saying that they would win it, but I think that that's definitely what they would like. They say, oh, you want to outman us? You want to outrun us? Let's do it. Oh, man, I need to go listen to a Shennis Berry speech. I should open up every show. Before I start the show, I should listen to a Shennis Berry speech. I probably elevate my podcast 7 notches. I didn't even know I had 7 notches I could go. But if I listen to Shennis Berry speak, I might hit 23. Yeah, I don't know, man. This guy, he gets me excited just talking about him. All right. Anyway, when it comes to South Carolina State, you got to stop that run. 5 of the 6 touchdowns that Tennessee Tech put up on the board were off the ground. They had over 300 yards. Aiden Littles only played 2 games this year. He has 7 yards per carry in one game and 11 yards per carry in the other. And that 11 yards per carry was this previous one against Gardner-Webb. He didn't play the Tennessee State game, but against Gardner-Webb, he had 11. He ended up having 10 carries for like 118 or something like that. The dude is explosive. The kid is super explosive, but you know what? It's like that video. I packed that thing too. And I'm looking at DeAndre Duhart for South Carolina State. South Carolina State is coming off of a 40-point performance over North Carolina A&T. And you know what? I'm not scoffing at any 40-point performances over an FCS team. I'm not. If you need somebody to do that, go listen to whoever. I'm not doing it, because I think that there's value in it. It doesn't mean that you're elite, right? I think that's the thing. We devalue things because we want to talk about what it doesn't mean. But what does it mean, right? Like we devalue. That's how I feel. When we're talking about football, we spend so much time devaluing things. I'm not going to sit here and do that all day. Well, you know, they put up a 40-point performance against this team. It really don't matter. No, it means something. It may not mean everything, but it means something. They act like putting up 40 points on anybody is easy, and it's not. if we're talking about same subdivision, we're talking about professional, all of that, it means something. It's a building block. It's a sign of potential. At the worst, it shows you the ability to be explosive offensively. That's what I see. Or it shows you the ability to exploit a weakness. It shows you some sort of strength of the team. Oh, they can run the ball really, really well. You going against a weak, let me slow it down because I'm starting to get tongue twisted. It shows us ability and it shows us potential. If you put up 300 rushing yards, look, you may not be the greatest rush offense in your conference, but it shows that your running ability is always a threat. That's what I mean. So when I'm looking at the 40-point performance that they put up on North Carolina A&T, I'm saying, oh, South Carolina State can score a little bit at the least. We have to think about that. I have to look at a guy like Duhart, who's been going crazy in all of his FCS opponents. Outside of playing Citadel, he played good against FAMU. He played good against, he played good against Citadel, and he didn't play good against Georgia Southern. And then he came back last week and played good against North Carolina A&T. This is going to be a very interesting battle, and is one that I'll love to see what happens on the ground. Can Tennessee Tech repeat last week's performance to a certain degree? Can they get 200 on the ground? Can Duhart repeat his performance? Can he get 80, which is what he's been regularly doing when going against FCS opponents? Woo! I can't wait. Here we go. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at Alabama State versus FAMU. The game of the week is what I've been looking forward to this game since before the year started. So it was going to take a lot to knock it off. I ain't get a lot to achieve that. So in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.